Gene, I think it's Philly's up first.
All right, Mayor Kenney, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gene. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me on to talk a little bit about how important the American Rescue Plan has been for Philadelphia. This week marks 2 years since the first case of COVID-19 was discovered in Philly. I remember the uncertainty our administration felt in those early days, the questions we had, the worst case scenarios we braced ourselves for. Since then, we have lost friends and loved ones. People across the world have faced uncertain economic futures. Business owners everywhere were forced to navigate restrictions and shutdowns, and cities and states across the country had to confront enormous financial challenges. That's why mayors across the country joined together to advocate for direct fiscal assistance for cities. We are grateful that the Biden-Harris administration heard our call and has made partnering with mayors a priority. Last year at this time, it was clear that we were facing massive revenue shortfalls because of the effects of the pandemic. Our budget director described an Armageddon scenario if the American Rescue Plan did not pass. The painful cuts and potential tax increases that we would have been forced to make without the ARP funds would not only have decimated city government, but would have caused serious harm to our regional economy. The ARP was crucial not just for the government and the people who rely on its services, but for the entire region. Philadelphia specifically, our city was looking at $450 million gap in our budget for FY22 and the dawning reality that we could see a $1.5 billion gap in the next 5 years. As the leader of a city that has grappled with one of the highest rates of poverty in the country, let me put budget gap into perspective. Not having this ARP funding would have decimated critical services our residents rely on. Without the American Rescue Plan, it would have meant cutting levels of essential services like our fire and EMS services. Imagine a grandfather in medical crisis waiting a few extra minutes for help to arrive. It would have meant cuts to homeless shelter beds and neighborhood library hours. Imagine those neighbors who rely on us most with no place to turn to. It would have meant closing our public computing centers and public pools during the summer. And imagine a third grader walking by an empty pool in a neighborhood on the hottest day of the year. And it would have meant hundreds of layoffs of frontline city workers, our dedicated public servants, losing their livelihoods and taking their expertise and knowledge of their communities with them. State and local fiscal relief funds have been nothing short of life-saving. With this relief, Philadelphia was able to face the pandemic head on, and we are proud that with the support of the Biden-Harris administration, the suffering we were feeling in Philadelphia felt seen for the first time in a long time. Over the last 2 years, despite the enormous impact the pandemic had on the city's budget, the state and local funds have allowed us to step up and support our residents and businesses. ARP funds have supported our ability to invest in critical programs to address our biggest challenges, like addressing gun violence, reducing poverty, and helping our city and regional economy grow back stronger and with greater equity. For example, without these funds, we would have not been able to make new investments in the critical anti-violence efforts needed to address the gun violence crisis that is prematurely ending lives in our city every day. These funds have allowed us to reach hundreds of young people this year at highest risk of being perpetrators or victims of gun violence through our Community Violence Interruption Program. And through our Anti-Violence Community Expansion Grant Program, launched last summer, we have issued grants totaling $13.5 million to 31 organizations doing anti-violence work on the ground. We look forward to continuing to support these organizations in their critical anti-violence work in our communities that are most hit hard the most. We have not yet turned the corner on the unprecedented levels of gun violence in our city, but these federal funds are giving us a chance to intervene and to prevent more needless deaths. And they are also helping us continue to improve services for our residents. For example, they are helping us make new resources available for residents who have the 911 emergency. State and local relief funds are helping us bring to scale the Police Behavioral Health Co-Responder Program so that residents who call 911 can get the specialized help they need, including behavioral health crisis services, and police can focus their efforts where they are most needed. All that said, it is no exaggeration to say that these federal funds save lives. Our communities would have absolutely no path to an equitable recovery from the pandemic without this support. State and local fiscal relief funds from the American Rescue Plan represent a significant turning point for Philadelphia, not just in the fight against the pandemic, but for the future of our city. It continues to provide much needed resources to save lives, to keep our residents healthy and housed, and to support our schools and small businesses, and all with a focus on eliminating racial disparities. Despite our challenges, I am very optimistic about the future of our city and region. With local unemployment now down to around 6% after peaking at nearly 20% last year, construction is booming, tourism is on the upswing, and a vaccination rate among the highest in the country, I remain confident that Philadelphia's best days are ahead of us. The ARP dollars are making this possible, and without them, none of it would have been. So thank you very much for all your hard work, and keep our cities in mind, as I know you always do.